Welcome to our webinar today, Using Data for Advocacy, Making the Most of the Clean Water Hub. This is really going to be a back to basics of the Clean Water Hub and how to use it to access data and make change in your communities. We have done webinars like this in the past. However, there have been a lot of changes in the Clean Water Hub since its creation in 2018. So if you are a hub user or you've used the hub in the past, I'm sure you may gain some value out of this webinar. And if you're brand new to the Clean Water Hub and don't monitor water quality at all, this will still be valuable for you as well. So once again, if you're just filing in, folks are putting where they are tuning in from in the chat, and if they're from an Isaac Walton League chapter as well. Let's see. Real quick with introductions. So we're all staff at the Isaac Walton League of America, which our mission is to conserve, restore, and promote the sustainable use of our natural resources, including soil, air, woods, waters, and wildlife. We're all part of the Clean Water Program. I'm Sam Puckett. I'm the Clean Water Program Director, and a lot of you probably know me. I've been around for almost a decade now, which is kind of crazy. But I will kick it over to Heather.
Hello, everybody. I'm Heather Wilson. I'm the Midwest Save Our Streams coordinator with the League, and I also coordinate our Nitrate Watch Citizen Science program. And unlike the rest of these guys, I work remotely. I'm based out of St. Louis, Missouri. And I'll pass it over to Abby.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abby Heilman, and I am the Salt Watch coordinator at the Isaac Walton League. So you'll learn a little bit more about Salt Watch at the end of this webinar. It's one of our nationwide community science monitoring programs, like all of these programs are here today. I'll pass to Maggie.
Thank you. And I'm Maggie Dombrowski, also out of the Gaithersburg office. I'm the Mid-Atlantic Save Our Streams coordinator. And specifically, I coordinate the Virginia Save Our Streams program, which is a benthic macroinvertebrate monitoring program.
Awesome. Thank you all. So Maggie, Heather, and Abby will be helping field questions and whatnot in the meantime, and they will chime in towards the end with some real world examples from the programs that they help coordinate and run. So diving right on in here, just to go over what we're going to look at today. Oops, of course, I already click ahead. We're going to do an overview of the Clean Water Hub, how to access that data and export some of it for your use, and then taking the next step. So once you have accessed the data in the hub, whether you collected it or not, how you can use that data to create real change in your community. So the Clean Water Hub, it is our national database. It's been around since 2017 or 2018, and it's gone through quite a few stages of development since then. Our goal when we created the Clean Water Hub was to share water quality data from local streams, rivers, lakes, ponds, and whatnot across the country, and give folks, volunteers, other organizations, NGOs, even some governmental groups, a platform in which they can easily share water quality data collected by volunteers at no cost to them. So we really wanted to amplify volunteer water quality data across the country, not just for our Save Our Streams volunteers at the time, but really take in more folks to engage in water quality monitoring. So this is what our home screen looks like on the Clean Water Hub. If you go to cleanwaterhub.org, it'll take you there. Feel free to click around after this webinar is over. We encourage you to explore. The hub is a collaborative tool to help volunteers and organizations track water quality. The Isaac Walton League, we are the administrators of the Clean Water Hub. So if you have any questions, we are the folks that you are going to go to, but we encourage organizations and other groups to create their own profiles within the hub to add their data. Our goal is by putting all this data in one place to really make a broader impact. So have groups working together to gather new forms of water quality data. Rather than one data point, you can look at thousands across the board to really see a clearer picture of water quality across the country. So by putting all this data in one place in an easy and accessible way, we're hoping that it can have a broader advocacy impact moving forward. So the hub is used right now by water monitoring groups, Isaac Walton League chapters, other conservation organizations, educators from elementary school all the way up through secondary education, concerned citizens, and what we call freelance water quality monitors. So those are just our individuals that don't necessarily belong to a water quality monitoring organization, they can still take great water quality data and enter it into the hub. Right now, the Clean Water Hub, it collects SOS chemical, Save Our Streams chemical, and Save Our Streams biological data. So our traditional 50-year-old water quality monitoring programs, Virginia Save Our Streams data, Creek Critters data, which is the mobile app Creek Critters for folks who want to explore biological water quality monitoring, Salt Watch, and Nitrate Watch data. We'll dive into those a little bit more down the road as well. And as of now, well, as of August 2025, so a couple days ago, we have over 20,000 stations or sites in the Clean Water Hub that people are adding data to, 66,000 samples. So those are those readings within the hub itself or in those sites itself. 367 organizations contributing data to the Clean Water Hub and almost 4,000 members using it. So folks who have accounts that are adding data to the Clean Water Hub as well. So it's grown drastically, obviously, over the last 7 or 8 years since we built it. And we're hoping to see those numbers spike even more moving forward. So how to get started with the Clean Water Hub. So first and foremost, anybody can view public data and maps within the Clean Water Hub. You don't have to have an account. You don't have to be part of a water quality monitoring group or an Isaac Walton League chapter. You can just go to cleanwaterhub.org, that URL at the bottom of this slide, take a look around, click around on maps and whatnot. You don't have to log in or create a profile to do that. In order to contribute data, you will need to make an account. So if you are monitoring for water quality, you will have to create a free account within the hub to add that data, just so we can tie you to an organization or tie your data to you as an individual. So you can monitor as an individual or as part of an organization. If you would like to create a profile for your organization, if it's not already in the hub, there is a request form that we have you fill out, and we can put that organization into the hub for you. So once again, you don't need an account to look at the data in the hub. I encourage you all to explore. If you go to cleanwaterhub.org, this is our home page here. You'll see the sign up and sign in buttons, but you don't have to click on those to look at data. The first thing I encourage you all to do is make note of the help section up here in the top. We created this whole help resource section so that if you all get stuck at any point or you're looking for something in particular and can't find it, there's a lot of resources in there that can help you, guide you through how to look for data, how to download data, how to use the different maps that are in there, and contribute data as well if you're looking to add sites and add readings to those sites. So there is a basic user's guide. So getting started, entering data in the Clean Water Hub. We have a lot of frequently asked questions that we've put in there. So if more than one person has asked the same question, it has landed itself in the FAQ section. Sharing your data, we have a section about communication and advocacy resources to help you use your water quality data for good. We also have more specific sections that aren't listed here about the Salt Watch Basic Users Guide, Nitrate Watch Basic Users Guide, and BASOS Basic Users Guide as well. So if you're looking at those protocols or trying to enter data for those protocols in particular, there's more information there as well. If you still are stuck, there is a chat feature in the help page on the hub, which will send us an email. We're not, unfortunately, the automatic robots that can get back to you immediately, but it will send us an email so we can get back to you and help with whatever issue you have. You can also email us directly at sos@iwla.org. That gets to all of the Clean Water programs. So we'll direct that email accordingly to who it needs to go to get your question answered. As far as data access and exporting data, we'll dive into this a little bit. Once again, you do not need to have an account or to enter water quality data into the hub to access data and use the data that's in there in your community. So the data is publicly accessible. It's created with usability in mind. So we want to make this data usable and understandable, easy to access, understand, share, so that you could take this data and bring it to a legislator, bring it to your representatives, or bring it to your HOA, homeowners association, and they could understand the data that's in there and understand how that water quality impacts the community. We have color-coded readings, auto-generated graphs, and interactive maps that help with data visualization. to make sure that we're not just handing people spreadsheets, that our data really does mean something when you're just glancing at it from a distance. So if you're brand new to the hub, the first thing I encourage you all to do is explore the data that's in there. So at the top of cleanwaterhub.org, you'll see an Explore Data tab. And if you click on that, there'll be a drop down with all sites, Nitrate Watch, Salt Watch, and BASOS. So these are interactive maps that really help individuals see what's happening across the country, but also in their communities. So the first map we'll talk about is the All Sites map. This one has tons and tons of sites in it. It includes all of the protocols that are accepted in the Clean Water Hub. So all the data that's in there shows up on this map. So that's SOS Chemical, Biological, BASOS, Creek Critters, Nitrate Watch, and Salt Watch. If there's any data in there, it shows up on this map. The purple dots are any data that's been collected in the last year is at that site. Any dot that is gray, that means the data in that site is older than a year old. So it just helps you get a glimpse on if you have kind of stagnant sites near you or if there's fresh data at a site near you that you can utilize. There's also the Salt Watch map. Once again, if you click that Explore Data button and click on Salt Watch, the Salt Watch map shows all the Salt Watch readings across the country. And you can see that there's a start date and end date at the top. You can plug in whatever dates you want to see data for. It also pulls in the chloride readings from SOS Chemical. So any chloride reading that's ever collected from Salt Watch or otherwise shows up on this map. You can also filter this map by water source type. So if you just want to see all the Salt Watch readings for drinking water, you can click on that. Surface water, you can click on that. Even if you wanted to get more specific and like, hey, I only want to see the Salt Watch readings from small streams or creeks, you can get that specific. And by clicking on one of those boxes, it'll filter the data to only show that particular water source. There's also a legend in the bottom of that map, so it tells you what the color code means for the reading. So this is parts per million or milligrams per liter of chloride. So those black dots are really, really high levels of chloride for streams, rivers, lakes, ponds. Green levels are what we're hoping to see in terms of road salt pollution in our streams. And so it helps give you a glimpse of what's happening in your community. And I also encourage you all to take a look at this Salt Watch map and look at winter months versus summer months and see how those values may or may not change depending on your region. The next interactive map we'll talk about is the Nitrate Watch map. It includes Nitrate Watch data and nitrate readings from the SOS Chemical program, just like how Salt Watch works as well. Just like the Salt Watch map, you can filter by date and water source type. Same thing, there's that water source, you can see just the drinking water readings, just the lake readings, just the other readings. And then there is a legend as well. So this one sorts those nitrate readings into excellent, good, fair, and poor. Poor is anything above that 10 milligrams per liter drinking water threshold for nitrate pollution. So once again, I encourage you all to explore. If you wanted to search for a specific region, the first thing you could do is you could use those plus and minus arrows up here. Oops. Up here in the top corner of each of these maps. This applies across the board. You can zoom in and move it around to see a particular region. Say if you wanted to zoom in to a certain spot in Indiana, you could zoom all the way in and take a look. The other thing you could do is use this search bar up in the top corner and type in a zip code or a township, and it'll zoom in for you. So if you wanted to dive in and see what's happening in your community and get a little bit more granular than what you see from this national map, you can do so by using that search bar or by zooming in on your map, just like you would with Google Maps and things like that. The last interactive map we have is the Virginia Save Our Streams map. This looks at all the Virginia Save Our Streams data that has been collected. Once again, you can sort by date and protocol type, which is muddy or rocky bottom BASOS data. And this is sorted into a different color coding. So the BASOS protocol works by looking at acceptable, gray zone, and unacceptable benthic macroinvertebrate scores. So all the green dots, our stream is A-OK. All the red dots, our stream is unacceptable and something needs to be improved. And then the gray dots are the gray zone, which it doesn't mean we're right in the middle. It means we need a little bit more information before we can determine if our stream is acceptable or unacceptable. So there you go. There's your legend with your color coding, as well as your ability to filter by muddy bottom, which is usually east of the 95 corridor, or where you get that lower gradient, slower moving streams, or rocky bottom, which is the majority, I would say, of the BASOS data collected. Once again, encourage you all to click around on these maps, see what's happening in your community. If there's no data there in your community and you'd like to collect some nitrate watch and salt watch data, it's free to join those programs. We'll send you test kits through the mail, and you can get going. If you'd like to, if you're in Virginia or Maryland and would like to join BASOS, we are happy to train you and get you going on that program as well. If there's a bunch of data already in your region and you're not interested in monitoring, you can still use that data to advocate for solutions in your community. Once you're looking in on these maps, this is our nitrate watch map, for example, you can start digging into individual sites. So you can click around on the dots on these maps and these little boxes will pop up and it'll show you the latest reading that's there. This is the nitrate watch map. So it's showing you the latest nitrate reading, 20 parts per million. That's pretty high for this site. And then the number of readings in that time frame that are showing up for that particular site as well. So this particular example, Rock Creek, last reading was 20 parts per million, a little bit pretty high actually. And the number of readings was 8. And we can dive into what it looks like when you actually click on that Rock Creek, which is that stream name or that site name. Then you'll open up that site page within the Clean Water Hub. So you can see where specifically, you see that dot on the map where specifically the site is. Some monitors have uploaded pictures of their site, which is cool to see. A little description here underneath the site name. You can see what organizations this site belongs to. So right now this site is a freelancer organization. So that means a monitor joined as an individual, and also it's part of the Nitrate Watch program. So this person is doing Nitrate Watch monitoring at this site. And then when you scroll down on that site page, you can see the different protocols and how those readings are changing over time. So this is the Nitrate Watch program. You can see the readings at this site are pretty high all the time. And in mid-June, they hit 50 parts per million at that site, which is extremely high. So it's really interesting to see how these sites can change seasonally with the different readings. And I encourage you all to click through and look at the different protocols at the bottom of the site page, as well as looking at over time how those water quality values can change. If you are interested in going beyond looking at the maps and looking at those individual sites, you can export data as well into spreadsheet format and play with it yourself, which is fun if you're, a little bit of a spreadsheet nerd like I am and like making your own charts. So you can export data for a particular site on an individual site basis, or if an organization has enabled it, you can export data for a whole organization. Those organizational managers decide who can download data. Sometimes only managers can download that organization's data. Sometimes members of that organization and managers can download data. And sometimes, like with Nitrate Watch and Salt Watch, they have enabled it so anybody can download that data and use it. So our goal is to make this data as accessible as possible. So anybody who wants to utilize that data and see it and integrate it into whatever advocacy or research that they're doing, they are able to do that. We encourage you all to view these graphs for all these different sites. And if you would like to share them, you can either send that specific site link to a user to take a look at, or you can screenshot these graphs and use them in a report or send them along in an email or however you see fit. You'll notice that the Clean Water program, we screenshot these graphs and use them all the time because they're super visually impactful and we want to get people looking at this water quality data. You can also scroll down on that site and view all the data that's entered in that site over time. So you can see this person at this site, they're pretty diligent in monitoring every couple weeks. So we got a really comprehensive data set from them. This is SOS chemical monitoring. You can also click in on any of those readings. So if you were to go, let me go back here. If you were to click view on any of these readings, it would pull up that individual reading. And so you could see the description, any comments, all the latest readings with those color coding, weather conditions, and you get a bunch more information there. You can also download that organizational data set, as I mentioned before. So if you were to click on an organization page, so this example is Story County Conservation, and you wanted to download that whole data set, you would click download sites and readings, and it would give you all of that data in an Excel downloaded spreadsheet. So if you're not really into data, this can look like a lot. If you're interested in kind of diving into those sites and all the data that they have there, it will give you a wealth of information from lat longs, site names, any sort of comments, as well as those water quality readings that they have been taking over time. And then here's that. This is what the readings page would look like for SOS chemical. You can see we have nice headers that tell you what each column means: nitrate, chloride, phosphate, etc. And so we encourage you all to take a look and click around and see what you can find there. Once you have gotten your bearings in the Clean Water Hub and really seen what's happening in your community, and maybe you've noticed there's a lot of really high nitrate readings around me, or there's a lot of really high chloride readings, so road salt pollution, or my VASOS scores around me are really, really low, and I would like to see my stream be acceptable and not unacceptable. We encourage you all to take the next step and take that data and turn it into action. So that can look like a number of things depending on the individual. Our data is used by government agencies. We share it with the EPA. We share like our salt watch data with different agencies that have expressed interest in road salt reduction strategies. They use it to track the impact of best management practices and track progress of restoration. The Clean Water team uses the data for annual reports, outreach to media sources. We do send it along to those government agencies. We send updates to the SOS volunteers if there's anything of note. And then our clean water advocates are really our bread and butter when it comes to making an impact on the ground with our water quality data. So we have advocates all over the country who are using this data to add fodder to letters to the editor, contacting their local representatives, and even just using it to educate community members and bringing it to their homeowners association and bringing it to community meetings to really promote change on the ground where that change can be done at the local level. So you can use the data from the hub to attract interest from the media. So you can incorporate the data and the visuals, so those charts and maps, in letters to the editor, in op-eds, in press releases. And so if you're interested in doing something like this, so here's a great example of an opinion piece by a salt watch monitor, Carl Van Nest, that was in the Washington Post. If you're interested in doing something like this and submitting these letters, we have a letter to the editor and op-ed guide. And I'll have the Clean Water team folks put the link to that in the chat for you all. It has letter to the editor templates and just some overall guidance on how to write these letters, who to submit them to, and how to get the information you need to get that done. Super comprehensive. Heather took a huge stab at that and did a great job. And so we encourage you all to utilize that resource. You can use the data from the hub for communicating with decision makers. So you can share water quality data and visuals when communicating with your HOA, as I mentioned, with city council, with your DNR, DEQ regional office, with legislators. And then you can use it with IWLA resources like our action alerts. You can use our draft letters to representatives to then add your own data to it, or data you find in your community. And I encourage you all to also check out our Salt Watch Advocacy Guide, how to start a salt watch campaign in your community, to use that data to then improve road salt pollution where you are. A lot of our folks use our data for public outreach, which is really great. So you can incorporate that water quality data and visuals into outreach efforts. So that could look like printing out some of your charts and maps for tabling events. For fair, the county fair was just happening around us. That's a great outlet for using some of this data. You can share the hub as a resource to learn more about local water quality. You can also ask us for resources to help share this information. We can certainly send some your way if you have an outreach avenue that you'd like to utilize. We have fact sheets for all of our programs, which is very helpful when talking about the data, to give folks background info on what the data actually means and why those pollution issues matter. And then we have our comprehensive advocacy guide to encourage you all to take different avenues into becoming advocates for improved water quality. And so it kind of breaks down the different avenues of advocacy and what you all need to be advocates in your community. Just a reminder, you're going to hear me hammer this probably at least a couple more times. There is that help page on the top right corner of the Clean Water Hub. There's a help link. I encourage you all to use that if you get stuck in an area of the hub. My first thing I encourage you all to do is just hit refresh and see what happens to that page. Second thing is go and access the hub help section. Try and search for different articles to see if that'll help answer your question. We have a bunch of stuff in there about sharing your data as well. So not only is the help page there to help you if you get stuck in the hub, it's there to help you become an advocate with the water quality data that is in the hub. So we have simple instructions on things like how to take a screenshot if you'd like to take a screenshot of your charts and you're not sure how, but all the way up to how to send a letter to the editor, how to create fact sheets that you can share with your local community. We have really great fact sheets that have background info on the issues of like fluoride pollution, temperature, salt watch, VASOS, and we have left spaces in them where you can input data from your community, which is really useful to add that local context when you're advocating for change. So that's what these look like. We have information on the health scores for all the different parameters, room where you can drop in your own charts and your own background information on sites around you. So we encourage you all to use these. And if you have trouble using those, feel free to reach out to us at sos@iwla.org and we can help populate some of these fact sheets for you as well. We also have prefab fact sheets that aren't made for you to plug in your water quality data. So we have a bunch of salt, nitrate, and VASOS fact sheets about the pollution issues facing them. These are really helpful for adding context to a pollution problem. So how to be a smart salter, nitrates in algae, nitrates in drinking water, nutrient pollution, healthy soil, clean water, the cost of nitrate pollution. So depending on who your audience is, it'll help add context to the water quality issues that you are talking about. And finally, diving in, here's our advocacy guide. It really breaks down how to be a clean water advocate from the 101 super entry level all the way up to talking to your representatives and reaching more and more people with your advocacy. Identifying your problem, using your data, understanding needs, building partnerships. So it's a really comprehensive, if you're looking for a nice 30-40 page read to get you some background on advocacy, this is a really great place to start. We also include a lot of other addendums that link to partner organizations that have really great resources that can help guide you in your advocacy as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Abby, who's going to give a more specific SaltWatch example so you can see how folks have been using data in the hub to then create change on the ground.
Thanks, Sam. So as a little bit of a recap of some of the things that Sam went over, so the page that you're seeing right here on the screen, you get to by going to Explore Maps, and then go down to the SaltWatch map. Once you get to this page, you'll notice that there's a couple different things that you can toggle. So on the far left, you can look at a streets view or a satellite view, which I'll show you here in a little bit. You can change the dates, the start time and the end time for the data that you want to see here on the map. At the very bottom right, there's filter by water source, which Sam went over already. And then what I'm going to talk about right now is using that search box that is circled there in red, or also the plus and minus signs underneath of it. So if I were to type in, let's say, Silver Spring, Maryland into that search box and hit enter. Next page, Sam. It will come up with something like this. Now, there's a couple things here on the screen that's a little additional to what you would see if you typed in just Silver Spring, Maryland. On the left there is actually more so the map that you'll see. And then I went ahead and I clicked on that one dot at the very top of sort of that string of red and black and yellow dots. And that's what you're seeing here on the map more towards the right. It's the headwaters of Sligo Creek, Blue Ridge Avenue. And there's a reason why I clicked on this particular site. I wanted to see, so there's this line of really, really high readings that I was seeing here on this map. I wanted to see what's going on with this headwaters. And then also to give you an example of how one of our local organizations near Silver Spring, Maryland, our organization called Friends of Sligo Creek, used the data to work on creating change within their community. So we're going to explore more of this particular site, Headwaters of Sligo Creek, and then explain how they might use some of that data to make change. So if we were to click on that site, Headwaters of Sligo Creek, next slide, please, Sam. It will bring up something that looks like this. Headwaters of Sligo Creek, where that pin is on the map on the upper part of the screen is showing there from the streets view, the name of the site, a little description of the site. You'll notice sort of to the right of the site name, there's two logos. There's the Saltwatch logo, and then there's a logo for Friends of Sligo Creek, which I'll zoom in here a little bit later. There's some different data parameters or protocols that they can use. I highlighted Saltwatch, and then the Saltwatch readings from that site are shown at the very bottom of the screen. So next slide, please. So just zooming in a little bit to that map. So this is the street view. You'll notice that there's a lot of green space sort of to the right and sort of south of that site. Southeast of that site, but then there's a lot of developed area, especially to the left and sort of all surrounding this site. So just as a visual sort of reference, because I really like to look at a lot of these maps and see, okay, we're seeing some problems at this sample site location. What could be things that might be contributing to a pollution issue at this site? So next slide, Sam. So I toggled from street view to satellite view, and I think this shows up a lot more of that development, a little bit more sometimes than that street view map does. And so this is another resource that you can use to help you maybe pinpoint some sources of pollution, but also to get a better sense of maybe some of the things that are surrounding you in your community. Because it's one thing to go to a sample site location and sample there, but it's another thing to really have a better understanding of what's going on around that sample site location that might be contributing to different pollution problems. Next slide, please. So looking then at the data, so this is a zoomed out or zoomed in version of that graph that we saw earlier. They've sampled at this site for a couple years, mostly during the winter months, and you'll see that there's a lot of spikes that are happening here. And so next slide, please, Sam. I put some of the actual readings here on this. So you'll notice maybe before a winter salting event, you have some lower readings, like in 2024, in January 6, 2024, it was 43 milligrams per liter. And then on January 16th, it spiked up to 750 milligrams per liter, which is chronically toxic for freshwater aquatic life, approaching acutely toxic for freshwater aquatic life. And then it goes down a little bit to that 301 milligrams per liter chloride, which is still above that chronically toxic level for freshwater aquatic life. And then maybe there was some additional salt that was added to that stream. And so it spikes back up to 423 milligrams per liter on January 23rd, and it goes up even higher then on January 24th. And then it drops down a little bit. And the next year, it starts to spike up around the same time during that year. So maybe there was some similar storm events that happened, or storm events that happened around the same time for both of these years. And so then it spikes up again, and it goes so high this next year, all the way up to 6,104 milligrams per liter. And this particular organization, they ended up purchasing high-range test strips to supplement the SaltWatch kits that they receive. And so the high-range test strips, it's basically the same process of using them as the test strips that you receive in your SaltWatch kit, except they go up to a higher range. Whereas if you're using the SaltWatch test strips and you have some really, really high chloride readings that are just really off the charts when you're using them, you might consider getting some high range test strips, which is what this organization did to really better understand how bad the problem is in their area. Next slide, please. And so this organization is Friends of Sligo Creek. It's one of our SaltWatch partners. And they, the sites that they're monitoring was that map that I showed earlier, where it was just basically a whole line all the way down Sligo Creek. Of just really, really, really high readings. And so they ended up sending a series of letters to a number of local and state organizations. And I'm going to put the link where you can actually read some of these letters. And they also, on their website, put the responses that they got from these different entities to the letters. And I think something that's really important to note with these letters that they send out, they're saying, hey, there's this problem that we're seeing. Here's some photos to document the problem. Here's some photos of the data that we have been collecting on our creek. And something that I think is a really great part of this is they weren't just calling out these organizations, these agencies. They really wanted to be involved, and they gave some different solutions, both long-term and short-term solutions as well. And the quote here to the right, this is actually part of one of their letters that they sent. This is a wake-up call for all of us. We're coming to the conclusion that a dramatic change in salt treatment practices is necessary to save our streams, groundwater, and soils. Change cannot be done by just one of your agencies. We strongly urge you to accelerate your cooperation, not only within the county, but also across county lines to address this tough challenge. We also want to help. So having all of those components to that letter, hey, this is the problem. This is what we're seeing. Here's the data to back it up. Here's some pictures to back it up. Here's some long-term, short-term solutions. And we want to be part of this. We really want to help as well. Next slide, please. And they actually got some recognition in the Washington Post. Kasha Patel wrote the article there to the left, "A salt crisis is looming for U.S. rivers." Unfortunately, there is a paywall, but if you are a Washington Post subscriber, I will put that link there in the chat so you can check it out. And so the quote that's below is just sort of a little preview of the article. The biggest source of salty water in DC and other major northern inland cities is an overapplication of road salt to thaw winter ice, which runs off into rivers or the ground. And Friends of Sligo Creek was actually quoted in the Washington Post, which really continues to sort of boost their visibility around the effort that they have of monitoring and trying to raise awareness within their community about some of the issues that they're seeing. And then to the right is a press release that then we put out sort of in coordination with Friends of Sligo Creek as well. And I put that in the chat as well for you to see. So it also goes through the problem and the cost, the impact, and some data and some ways to reduce road salt pollution in your home and also within your community. So it's still something that we're definitely working on, but this is a really great start and a great effort by one of these local organizations to make a difference within their community and to use that data that they've collected and inputted into the Clean Water Hub to really make that change. So with that, I'm going to hand this over. I think Heather is next.
Thanks, Abby. Hello again, everyone. I am about to share a brief example of data use for communication and advocacy, and I'm choosing to spotlight the Iowa CCI organization. I know there's a couple people from CCI on this webinar, so shout out to you all. But Nitrate Watch is a bit of a newer program. It's only been around for, I think, about 2 years. I should know this. But Iowa CCI was definitely an early adopter. And Iowa CCI is short for Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement, and they are a statewide group that has really embraced water monitoring through the Nitrate Watch program. And I'm going to share sort of examples of how they've done some data use and data sharing, both collectively as an organization, but then also spotlight individual volunteer efforts, because I think that provides a useful sort of point of inspiration for people who might not be part of an organization, but just to show that you still have the ability to kind of make a difference with data. Shown on this screen right here is Iowa CCI's organization profile on the hub. I included that link that says organization/249, just to remind myself to say this because it kind of looks like a map of all the data points in Iowa. In fact, there are many more data points in Iowa, but this is just to showcase the big breadth of the geographic area that their volunteers cover. And the purple dots, again, are the more recent data points, and gray dots are older than 1 year. So let's go ahead and advance to the next slide. This is a great example of data visualization and summary by an organization. This was their 2024 year-end report, which was mailed out to volunteers. And it just does a really nice, succinct job of summarizing both participation stats, like how many volunteers requested kits, how many volunteers submitted data, and a little bit of data summary. They also highlighted events that were held throughout the year, identified some goals, things that they wanted to improve for the next year. So this is a great example of how CCI has been engaging with their volunteers year round. And it's a great example of pulling data from the hub, doing some simple analysis that doesn't take much more than a little bit of playing around on Excel, but then to make it meaningful for people who've been participating all year long. Next slide. And this is just the backside of the form, and it's showcasing their monthly meetings that they do with their volunteers throughout the kind of peak monitoring season, like spring to fall. They host these monthly meetings where volunteers can get together and talk about what they're seeing, issues that they're having, questions. And then they also invite educational speakers to provide a little bit more context for what's going on with water quality in Iowa. So these are also great times to talk about what data we're finding, what we want to highlight, maybe some ways to use that data in outreach and advocacy. And we can advance to the next slide. This is just a little bit of showcasing the recent work of Iowa CCI's volunteers to do some of that outreach. So I've got up here some little screen grabs from some recent media that CCI's volunteers have been featured in. And in many cases, they're sharing their data with reporters so that that can be amplified further, which is a really amazing example of data use and action. The amount of additional eyeballs that are reaching the Clean Water Hub, but also just learning about the nitrate issues in Iowa specifically, the impact is just really great. Next slide. And then finally, these are some examples of other types of outreach, because media outreach isn't necessarily the lowest hanging fruit. Letters to the editor, interviews, these are great kinds of, I think we would call that earned media, but there's additional ways to get the word out that are even easier. And I think I realized after the fact that one of these examples is not a CCI volunteer. So Mike, shout out to your blog, Mike Stein on Substack, but Substack, blogs, and social media are both really easy and kind of low barrier to entry ways to share data. And I also just wanted to point out that in many, well, not many, but in a handful of situations, these volunteers have even gone on to share these communications efforts with elected officials, and in some cases gotten meetings with the staffers of those electeds, which is, again, above and beyond, really huge. But just think of the impact that that has, right? So I also wanted to take this as an opportunity to say that I'm sharing examples that I am aware of, but I know that there's so much more stuff that goes on that I'm not aware of, which is fine. But if you want a pat on the back, or even if you just want to keep us in the loop, I really encourage you all to tag us in social media posts, send me an email, or send SOS at IWLA an email. Even if you don't want us to shout your name from the rooftops, which we're happy to do, but we understand if you don't want that. We would love to know what you're working on so that we can kind of just be in the know and support you as needed, because we're happy to provide resources and coach you through like submitting a letter or talking to a reporter. We're happy to do what we can to support you there. So I think with that, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Maggie.
Great. Thank you, Heather. So hello again, everybody. So just as a reminder, I'm going to talk about Virginia Save Our Streams, and in Virginia Save Our Streams monitors survey benthic macroinvertebrate or stream bug populations and generate a stream health score based on the numbers and types of stream bugs that they collect. So the example I'm going to share today is actually a success story that kind of was brought to light or came into light after looking at some of the Virginia Save Our Streams data after this spring season. So I was just looking around at the data, which is something, you know, anyone can do because this is publicly accessible data. You can look through in your area of interest and see what data points are there. And I noticed something interesting. So I started back on the main page of the hub, went to explore and the Virginia Save Our Streams map, and then zoomed in here on this Smith Mountain Lake area of Virginia. And I was specifically looking at this site, an unnamed tributary of Craddock Creek that's monitored by the Smith Mountain Lake Association. So I clicked on the point and then clicked on the title of the site. And then next slide, please. And then this is the page that it brought up. So this is the site page, which you all have seen from a couple of other examples so far. So you can see the map here up at the top, information about the site, the organizations that monitor it, and a graph. So what really caught my attention, next slide, please, was the graph. So as you can see, there was a really significant improvement in the stream health score from May of last year to March of this year. So from one spring season to the next, the score actually doubled. Last spring, 2024, it was a 6, which is the unacceptable stream health range. And then this year it received a 12, which is the high end of the acceptable stream health score range. So I saw this and I wanted more information about what was going on with this stream. Next slide, please. So I scrolled back up on the site page and looked at the site map, and I toggled over to the satellite view. And from here, it's a little hard to see because of the snow in this image, but you can kind of see that this site is in the middle of a golf course. So you can kind of see the little sand traps in the green areas. And then if you look down to the site description, it provides more information that it's below the 9th green of a golf course. And that was very interesting to me because golf courses generally have large expanses of turf, which can cause there to be a lot of runoff and pollutants just being carried directly into the stream. So it's pretty surprising to see a really high health score at a site in the middle of a golf course. So next slide, please. At that point, I reached out to the organizations that were involved in monitoring this site. So you can click on the organization logos on any site to see their page, see if they have their website or contact information there. These are, of course, Virginia Save Our Streams monitors, so I had other contact with them as well. But if it was someone that you don't know and you're interested in a site, you can just do that. So I wanted to find out if they had any thoughts or ideas about what might be leading to the big increase in stream score. Next slide, please. So they ended up directing me to another site that they monitor nearby, also on a golf course. This is the Smith Mountain Lake Association in Virginia. And this site, which is an unnamed tributary of Indian Creek, has actually been monitored for a lot longer. It's been monitored since 2009, so over 15 years. And as you can see, it's increased significantly as well, but it's been a lot more gradual. So it didn't necessarily jump right out at me off the bat. And you can see from the map that this one is also on a golf course. Next slide, please. So as it turns out, as I learned from talking with these monitors, they've actually had a relationship with the managers of both of these golf courses for years. At one of the courses, they have worked to reduce chemical fertilizer use over the past several years, which goes right along with that increase in stream score that we've seen. And then at the other golf course, the Smith Mountain Lake Association has been working with them to install a riparian buffer or an area of plants and natural area right around the stream, which would also help filter out some of those pollutants and the runoff. So both the reduction in chemical fertilizer and installing the riparian buffer are likely contributing to the increase in score that we're seeing at both of these sites. If you want to learn more about this, I'll put the link to the blog. We actually just posted a blog about this story. But I just wanted to highlight this because I may not necessarily have learned about this without that data. So this is something anybody can do, is look around on the hub, find data, and you never know what you might come across, what kind of interesting patterns and results you might encounter. And then stories like this, even if you don't discover your own story through the data, stories like this can be shared with other land managers. Maybe you have a golf course in your area, as an example of here's how a change in management actually impacted the health of the stream. And here's what we might expect if we do something similar. So this is just a great story through data that can be highlighted for your advocacy efforts, really wherever you are. And that is what I have. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you all. So that kind of concludes the meat of the presentation that we had today about the Clean Water Hub. I hope we piqued your interest and that you're, feeling empowered to go into the hub and click around and view those maps and see what data we have in there. And also feeling empowered to then use that data, even if you didn't collect it yourself, to advocate for solutions in your communities to improve water quality across the board. If advocacy is still feeling like something that might be a little bit intimidating to you, I encourage you all to check our advocacy guide out and our other resources. And you can also reach out to staff for help. So we can all be reached at that sos@iwla.org email that's on the slide right now. If you're interested in a particular protocol or any sort of advocacy in your community, we are happy to help. So utilize us as you see fit. Let us know if you have any questions or concerns as you're diving into the hub. And with that, I think I will open it up for questions if we have any.
I've seen some questions coming in from the chat, and why don't we start from the top? There was a question that came in earlier during your portion, Sam, about data export. It might have been answered, but maybe just as a quick reminder, can you remind us how to export data?
Sure. So the data can be exported by organization. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to all sites on that Explore Data tab. You're going to click on organizations, and then you'll be able to, if the organization manager has it enabled, you'll be able to export that data by organization. So if you're interested in Salt Watch or Nitrate Watch data or VASOS data, that data can be exported. You'll just go to the Nitrate Watch or Salt Watch or VASOS organization, and you'll be able to click download sites and readings there.
Awesome. Just a reminder, folks, if you have questions still, continue to put those in the Q&A. It's just a little bit easier for us to find them there, but there were some others in the chat that I didn't want to miss. So Maggie, there's a question from Art about VASOS trainings, I believe. Do you want to take that?
Sure, yeah. So yes, there are always ongoing Virginia Save Our Streams trainings across the state. I'll go ahead and put a link in the chat to the events page on the Isaac Walton League of America website. Some of the trainings will be posted there, as well as you can always reach out to a trainer in your area. and find out if they're hosting trainings, or oftentimes trainers kind of operate on demand. So if they find out that you're interested, they might be able to work with you to set something up. So I'll throw the link to the trainer page there as well.
Thanks, Maggie. I think the next question, if we're scrolling through the chat, is about Nitrate Watch, which I'm happy to talk about. It's asking if we can talk about making the nitrate strips more precise. There's so much estimation needed between those higher readings. I agree. For anyone who's not familiar, we use these Hawk nitrate test strips. And as you go up the color scale, the gaps between the numbers get bigger. So between 1 and 2 is no big deal, but between 10 and 20, 20 to 50, that becomes a bigger range. And our guidance is to estimate an intermediate value. So that means if you're between 20 and 50, if it's really approaching that darker pink color, that would be 50, maybe you write down 40 or 45. But I understand where you're coming from. That is a lot of kind of guesswork. And for people who really want something a little bit more precise, there have been some volunteers who've adopted using this color card. These are, again, free, and I think you just email. Oh, no, you download an app. Sorry, let me start over. These are Deltares cards. They have an app called Equality. You can download it in the App Store for free. It's out of the Netherlands, so it's going to take a minute for these cards to arrive at your door, but you can just go through the app to request a couple of these cards, and they'll mail them to you. And then you just use the app to basically put your test strip on the black part, and it will use your phone's camera to get a more precise reading. I don't have a whole lot of experience using this, so if you have questions, I'll do my best to answer them. But typically, I'm operating under the guesswork model. And my sort of guiding light is that if it's above 20 parts per million, whether it's 30 or 40 or 50, it's too high. So I know what I need to know, especially if it's drinking water or something, whether or not it's as accurate as, like a continuous probe monitor. It doesn't really concern me. But for anyone who wants more precise nitrate readings, you can test out that Equality app that's created by Deltares. Okay, I think I see another question just below that about adding photos. I can answer that as well if you don't mind. So on the Clean Water Hub, you can add photos to a site, which means like a monitoring location. But we don't have a way to add photos for each individual reading. Hopefully that's sufficient just to get a feel for what your site looks like. The goal is to upload pictures of like the monitoring location, not necessarily the test strip. It's up to you what you want your photo to be for your site though. But no, there's not a way to upload photos for each individual reading.
Cool. Okay, the next one I see. Do you check for bacteria monitoring, especially during the summer? So we at the Isaac Walton League do not administer a bacteria monitoring protocol ourselves. We do have a lot of partners that do bacteria monitoring in different protocols. We've been working on a protocol within the Clean Water Hub so that folks will be able to add their bacteria data. It's been a little bit slow going because we are not the experts in it. So we have to engage a lot of partners and also procure funding to do that development. So it is in the works, but don't hold your breath. It's not like in the works going to be done next week. It's just something we're working on so we can add more data sources for folks to be able to add protocols there. So that was part one of that question. If you have questions about bacteria monitoring data and are looking to find more resources about it, feel free to shoot us a note and I can connect you with partners across the country that are doing that type of monitoring. Next question, how do you go about getting the testing kits for salt, Abby?
An excellent question. So you can go to saltwatch.org to request a single kit. You fill out all of your information online, where we're mailing the kit, and we'll get that kit out in the mail to you. If you need multiple kits, you can email me at saltwatch@iwla.org, and we'll do our best to fulfill your requests for bulk kits.
Awesome. We just had one come in. This one will be for you, Maggie. I'm guessing that VASOS is not limited to Virginia, ? Gaithersburg, Maryland is trying to develop a more robust monitoring program, and we may try to utilize volunteers.
Great question. Yeah, so the Virginia Save Our Streams program is kind of centered in Virginia, but we are expanding into Maryland, and the protocol can be done in anywhere in the Chesapeake Bay watershed or the state of Virginia. So Megan, I'll drop my email in the chat again, but that would be great if you want to reach out to me. We'd love to talk with you about getting VASOS monitoring going in Gaithersburg. That'd be great.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Close to home, which we like as well. For folks that are interested in more bacteria monitoring data, just send us an email at sos@idahrelay.org with kind of where you are looking for that data, and we can make some connections there. Are there any other Q&As that I am missing?
We actually did have some come in through the Q&A box. The first one is asking about getting latitude and longitude and also correcting an entry. Does anyone want to take that on?
So correcting an entry, we'll start with the easier one, I think, to explain verbally. So anytime you enter data into the hub, you have the ability, or a site, any new information in the hub, you have the ability to edit that. So next to your site name or next to your reading, there's going to be a little, when you're logged in, this is key, you need to be logged into the profile in which you added that data. There's a little pencil icon that you'll be able to click on in order to adjust those readings. So if you need to correct something, you can go ahead and do that. If you're stuck, I encourage you to access the help function and then reach out to us as well. So that's an easy one. For the lat and long, the nice thing about adding a site within the Clean Water Hub is there's a couple ways to pinpoint that site on the map. The first is that you can just plug in your lat long in decimal format, decimal format, if you are if you know it already, but that's not the question. So plug it in, it'll zoom in on the spot on the map, you can spot check it, what have you. If you do not know your lat long on the map, you can actually zoom in to the location in which you did the monitoring. So you'd have to have some like awareness of where it happened. So like cross streets, icons, what have you, landmarks that you use to get there. And you can put a pin on that map and it'll populate it with your lat long. So that's a good way to do it within the Clean Water Hub if you're interested in finding that lat long. The other thing people have done, which is also a really great way to find your lat long, is if you're out in the field where you're doing the monitoring, you can go into like your Maps app or your Google Maps or what have you and put a pin down where you are and it'll give you your lat long. And so that's really helpful for me if I'm going out and I'm monitoring a couple different spots. Like if I'm doing a long hike and I want to do a couple monitoring readings on the way, I just drop a pin of where I am within my Maps app on my phone, and it'll save that information for me so that I can add it to the Clean Water Hub later. So there is, within the help documentation, there is more information on how to enter your lat long in your site or also find your lat long for yourself. So I encourage you to look into that help tab at the top of cleanwaterhub.org to answer both of these questions.
And I did throw that help article in the chat if anyone needs to check that out. This resource that we've linked to from that help article is in case you're not sure like which coordinate language you are in, this will help you get it into the correct coordinate system. There's a few different ways that people write out coordinates. We use decimal degrees, and this resource will help you make sure that you've got your lat long in the correct format, whether you're coming from Apple Maps or Google Maps or somewhere else. So great question. And if you mess it up the first time, you can always edit it and fix it. Okay, I'm seeing just one more question in the Q&A. It says, do you know of any municipalities that use your resources to reduce operating costs on their end? Does anyone want to take that on?
This sounds Salt Watch-ish, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at this one and feel free to fill anything in that I might miss. So we do have a number of resources online, including that advocacy guide that we linked to earlier. I don't know of any particular municipality who's used the guide itself to reduce operating costs, but there are a number of things from that guide that organizations have used, either from the guide specifically or that they have sort of developed their own to help reduce some of those operating costs. But it is a trickier question because especially with the salt issue, or the salt pollution issue, a lot of people are concerned about liability. And so you can't just completely reduce the amount of salt that you're using. And a lot of times there is a bunch of investment that goes into like updating equipment and things before we can transition to sort of smarter salting practices like using brine solution. But getting that conversation started is definitely something that is included in those advocacy guides and some sort of talking points and questions to ask. That's really the way to get those conversations started to then make change within those municipalities. And not even at the municipality level, it could even just be within like your own community organization, your HOA, your condo association, those types of things as well. But getting a conversation started is really the key to making some of those changes happen.
Yeah, just to add on, I'd say the municipalities that we've worked with, it's been kind of a snowball effect, pun not intended. So really what has happened is we've, highlighted the salt issue across, a region, a city, a county, and then started to work with that city or county in ways to protect water quality and how to reduce road salt. And so some of that looks like providing applicator training where we can. Some of that looks like encouraging best practices for individuals or businesses. And so there's a number of ways that we can reduce the impact that isn't what a lot of people fear, which is jumping from too much salt to no salt used. There's a middle ground there that we're trying to reach. All righty. Did anything else come in here?
There's
chit-chatting.
One final question.
Well,
Will this be available for viewing again?
Yeah, so we record all of these webinars, and within we need the recording to download, but likely by the end of the day, we will have it up on our YouTube channel, the Isaac Walton League YouTube channel.
Before we sign off, I did want to comment on Laura's thing in the chat. Thank you, Laura, for providing your insight on the Deltares app. I forgot to mention it before, but this has reminded me. In Deltares, in the Equality app, it will like create a map of your data and store it locally so that you can see it. But I do just want to say, and maybe it goes without saying, but I really encourage you to not just keep your data in the Equality app. We want you to report it on the hub as well. That way it can actually be visualized by other people besides just you and contribute to the overall Nitrate Watch project. So just wanted to get that out there. But thank you, Laura. And thanks, Dale, for reminding us. This recording will be available soon.
Yeah. Great little ending there. So yeah, please feel free to share this recording far and wide. It should be up there by the end of the day. On our YouTube, we have a whole clean water webinar section of our YouTube. So you'll be able to watch this one as well as all of our past webinars to get up to speed on everything we've been doing for the past decade or so. With that, thank you all for joining us and learning a little bit more about the ins and outs of the Clean Water Hub. Please go ahead and click around and check out all of the data that's in there, our cool maps, our help section, all those things. And also thanks to the Clean Water team for joining me today and giving some insight into the nuance of that local data that we have in here. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your Thursday.